Okay, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to this meeting of the Braintree District Council Cabinet. That's the usual housekeeping. We're not expecting any fire alarms or anything, so if we do have an alarm go off, we will exit the building by the fire exits and get together in the car park, I think. So that's the situation. As I say, hopefully that will not be needed. I will move on then to the actual agenda for this evening. Item 1, apologies for absence. We have apologies from Councillor Pell. I just inform members I did speak with Councillor Pell on Thursday. She has had her operation and was hoping to be home for the weekend. I don't know whether that has actually happened as yet, but I passed on our regards of everyone here for a good recovery for Councillor Mrs. Pell. So that, I think, is the only apology we have.
It is, Chairman.
Fine, thank you. Move on to item 2, declarations of interest. Are there any members who wish to declare any disclosable pecuniary interests or non-pecuniary interests relating to any item on the agenda? Councillor Cunningham.
Thank you, Chairman. I'll declare a non-pecuniary interest as a member of Essex County Council due to various items on the agenda where Essex County Council were mentioned and relevant. Thank you.
I assume, just to save us time, Councillor Schweer, Councillor Bowers-Flint and myself will declare the same interests as members of Essex County Council. Okay, right, thank you. Any others? No, in that case, let's go on to item 3. Minutes of the previous meeting, which was held on the 25th of September. They have been circulated. Are members of Cabinet content that they are a true record and that I sign them accordingly? Agreed. Thank you very much. Right, item 4, public question time. I'm informed there are no speakers who are with us tonight, and therefore there are no public questions. That then takes us on to item 5, the Home Upgrade Grant 2 funding for domestic properties. And this paper will be introduced by Councillor Tom Cunningham. Councillor Cunningham.
Thank you, Chairman, and very pleased to bring forward this excellent paper. Once again showing how Braintree District Council's helping to enable major interventions that support the battle against climate change, improve sustainability and help those that are less well off. In September 2022, the Department of Energy, Security and Net Zero invited bids from local authorities for this scheme against a national pot of some £630 million, delivering on 2 priorities of government, and to deliver progress towards the statutory fuel poverty target for England by improving many fuel-poor homes, and to progress the UK grant target to reach net zero by 2030. The means in which this scheme will be rolled out are detailed in report section 4, but members will wish to note the consortium bid that was undertaken, the appointment of a managing agent to help facilitate, and the lack of direct risk to Braintree District Council. Braintree District Council will continue to act as an enabler. A map of those properties that are eligible and likely to benefit are included in the report. And really, I won't say anything else, Chairman, but to welcome this, to welcome the bid, to congratulate the consortium who are involved in this bid, and read out the recommendations of this Cabinet report as found in page 5 of the document. And that is 2.1, to Cabinet to note the award of £2.466 million in 23-24, with the opportunity to increase to up to £3.6 million in 24-25 of New Homes Upgrade Grant 2, known as HUG 2, scheme funding to this council. To note that the funding will be allocated in accordance with the provisions set out in section 4 of the report, and to agree that the council will enter into the Home Upgrade Grant 2 agreement. Thank you, Chairman. So move.
Is that seconded? Seconded? Thank you. Right, open to discussion or debate. Any comments from any member? Councillor Jeffries. Lynn.
Thank you. You might not know this yet, and it's good news, of course, but I just wondered how the scheme was going to be administered and how people were going to actually get these improvements.
Thank you, Thank you. Through you, Chairman, thank you to Councillor Jeffries for that. My understanding is that those wishing to apply can make contact with the sustainability team here at Braintree District Council, and they will put them, those applying, in touch with the managing agent, the facilitators for this grant. So we will enable that conversation to take place. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments? Could I just ask Councillor Cunningham that we do think about, and I'm sure you have, how we get this out, because clearly this is a huge investment in our rural areas. Yet again, more money going in to our rural areas, and I think that's important. But sometimes the communication into those rural areas isn't quite as good as maybe in some of the urban. So if we can make sure, because I'm certain we have members of this council who will want to very much welcome this huge investment, as I say, in our rural communities. Did you want to say anything, Councillor Beavis? No? You okay? Okay, thank you. We have a recommendation which has been moved and seconded. Are you happy to approve that? Agreed. Thank you very much. Right, let's go on to agenda item 6, Court Road Sports Ground, Halstead, and Councillor Mrs Spray.
Thank you, Chairman. I'm very pleased to present this report this evening. It's relatively straightforward, but it's also nice to have some positive news for Halstead, and one that involves spending Section 106 money. So this evening I'm looking for approval to allocate £210,216.46 for the construction of a tennis court and associated facilities at the Courtauld Sports Ground in Halstead. This funding has been secured via a Section 106 agreement, which arises from housing developed on land east of Sudbury Road, Halstead. The funds need to be spent by August 2024, and although that seems, quite a way off, by the time we've actually gone out to tender, secured a contractor and so on, it's actually quite a tight timescale. As members may be aware, there's already a very good variety of sporting activity available at the Courtauld grounds, but this will diversify the offer even further. The courts will be constructed from porous tarmac, and the intention is that they will be floodlit. Now, that will be subject to planning permission, and it will enable the courts to be used over the autumn and winter seasons. I just want to say something about the floodlighting, because I know that can be contentious. But this is proposed to be a new type of LED lighting. It's lower maintenance, and it provides a lower level of lighting, but is sufficient to enable tennis to be played all year round. Oh, it's less intrusive. I've actually been shown photographs of it. It's rather good. It's quite innovative. The lighting is actually placed around the top of the fencing that goes around the courts, not on the traditional columns. So it looks a lot less intrusive, and the light, the flood lighting should not have anything like as much impact on the surrounding area. From the start of the project, there has been extensive consultation with Halstead Town Council, and that will be ongoing right the way through to the finish, including consultation during the phase of appointing a contractor. Although the courts will be on land owned by the Town Council, BDC are delivering the project because Halstead Town Council have advised that they don't have the resources or the expertise to deliver a project of this type, but they will be responsible for the facility once construction is finished, and they will also be responsible for ongoing maintenance. The Town Council will be involved in the evaluation panel when the tenders for the construction works are submitted. And they, my understanding is that they are extremely content with how this has gone so far, and they are looking forward to welcoming this additional facility onto the sports ground. So, Chairman, the recommendations, there are 3 of them, are set out on page 19 of the agenda. I will just quickly read them. To agree to the allocation of £210,216.46 of Section 106 funding from the P0649 land east of Sudbury Road, Halstead, for the provision of a tennis court and associated facilities at Courtauld Sports Ground, Halstead. To approve the procurement of a suitable contractor to design and install the tennis court with associated facilities, including floodlighting, and to authorise the Corporate Director for Growth to award a contract to the winning bidder following the conclusion of the procurement exercise and provided it is within budget. And I so move. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Mrs Spray. Is that seconded?
Second.
Great. Open to comments, discussion. Councillor Mrs Bowers-Flint.
Thank you, Chairman. Whilst I welcome this facility, I just air a bit of caution about the floodlighting and would be far happier if somebody from this authority actually see what has been provided. And I say that on the back of the LED lights that are being replaced by the county council in the streets. I have had absolutely numerous complaints about when the lights are changed outside people's houses, about the glare of them, and in some cases they've been turned down as dim as they can, they've had shades put on them, and people still complain about how bright they are. So I wouldn't want us to be fall foul of that kind of thing. So whilst I appreciate that they're trying to do their best with it, it still needs to be seen, I think, by somebody just to make sure, because they could be on an awful lot, hopefully, if the facility is used to its maximum. So just to make sure we get the right thing. Thank you.
Councillor Mrs Spray.
Thank you, Chairman. I appreciate those comments from Councillor Bowers-Flint. Just a few points. I've actually been sent slides by the company who developed this lighting, so I've had a look. Appreciate that's just slides, but it does look very innovative to me. It's also been seen by our senior landscape architect, who is responsible for this project, and it will have to come to planning committee to approve it. So I think it will be well scrutinised, and there will be a chance, certainly at planning committee, for members to have a look and see what they think. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much. Councillor Ritchie.
Thank you, Chairman. Another cabinet meeting and another example of good spend of Section 106 money within the district. Last meeting it was 3 mega pitches for Witham and Braintree respectively, and now it's a tennis court for Halstead. So absolutely no favouritism when it comes to the upkeep and and making sure that everyone in the district can have access to sports facilities and new sports facilities. I think it's really good for the residents of Halstead, and again just adds to the portfolio of availability for, like I said, people wishing to keep active and partake in these sports. I wholly look forward to these being delivered for the residents of Halstead, and may even go and give it a try myself. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much. Any other comments? I think it would be fair to say if Councillor Mrs Pell was here tonight, she would be speaking very strongly in favour of this. She's been a great champion of this, and it's a pity she can't be with us tonight to see it come to a conclusion, but I'm sure she will very much welcome the recommendations. If there's no other... Oh, sorry, Councillor.
I was only going to say on that note, Chairman, assuming this goes ahead that we're running, we might have to get Councillor Pell to hit a first tennis ball over a net or something to get it open.
I'm sure she'll be there if there's any possibility, yes. Okay, thank you very much then. The recommendations are contained in paragraphs 2.1 to 2.3. Are you happy to accept those recommendations? Yep, thank you very much. Let's move on then to agenda item 7, which is the framework agreement for cleaning and hygiene supplies, and is Councillor Kevin Bowers. Councillor Bowers.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. Good evening, members. As it says in the report, this is to obtain delegated authority to award the Cleaning Hygiene Supplies National Framework Agreement for a period of 4 years from the 1st of February 2024 until the 31st of January 2028. This is a framework that we effectively administer on behalf of the Essex Procurement Partnership rather than a contract the Braintree District Council is awarding directly. Just to provide an overview of what we are aiming to achieve, the Braintree-led framework has been created to enable public sector bodies around the UK, including Braintree District Council, to effectively call off for a range of hygiene and cleaning supplies to meet our day-to-day needs. This cuts down ongoing procurement time in purchasing and ensures appropriate standard of supplies are used. By setting up the framework, the procurement hub can also generate income through a rebate Based on existing usage, rebates of approximately £150,000 could be achieved over the lifetime of the framework. The rebates will be used to fund the Essex Procurement Partnership as per earlier agreements. In the change to the previous contract, this procurement has been split into regional lots to also enable smaller firms to bid for specific regional areas. And so tonight the recommendation as set out on page 24 of tonight's report is for delegated authority to be given to the Corporate Director for Support Services to award the framework agreement once the tender process has concluded and enter into associated contracts. And I move that recommendation. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Bowers. Is that seconded?
Happy to second, Chairman.
Thank you. Any comments or questions at all? I think it's fair to say it's a good example of councils working collectively together to achieve good value for money for council taxpayers. If there are no other comments or questions, are you happy to accept the recommendations that have been moved? Agreed. Thank you very much. Let's move on then to agenda item 8. Which again is Councillor Bowers. This is a medium-term financial strategy. If I can just, for any members who might be, members of the public might be watching, we did have a very good, I thought, very good session for all members under the corporate scrutiny last, I'm going to say Wednesday, I think it probably was Wednesday, at which Councillor Bowers went through the whole thing, well, I think about 26 slides. You'll be pleased to know, members, that you're not going to get the 26 slides again this evening. But this is the formal bit of the budget setting process. It's not the end of it by any means, but the formal bit. So without more ado, I'll ask Councillor Bowers to introduce the paper and the recommendations therein. Councillor Bowers.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, we had a good airing of this at the Corporate Scrutiny Committee on Wednesday, as you just mentioned. So I will just go through a brief outline tonight of the current financial planning context and a little bit of a few sort of items I just want to bring to members' attention before obviously moving on to the recommendation for tonight's report. In regards to the financial planning context, the current economic outlook continues to create significant financial challenges with persistent higher inflation and interest rates, a continuing cost of living crisis and a backdrop of great uncertainty over the impact of geopolitical events. At the same time as preparing for the 24-25 budget and updated MTFS, a review of the corporate strategy is being undertaken which will shape the key priorities and objectives for the Council over the next 4 years and set the key actions and investment needs. Budgets will need to evolve and be reprioritised so that finite resources are properly aligned. At the same time, there is a pressing need to undertake significant transformational change across the authority to maintain financial resilience whilst also continuing to deliver the essential services for residents and businesses. The approach to achieving a balanced budget has been to deliver cost reductions and additional income while minimising the impact on customers and service delivery and using prudent levels of reserves and balances. For several years, an ambitious capital investment programme and strategy has been delivered, resulting in significant projects that have brought economic benefits to the district, increased housing and improved public realm. Capital investment has typically been funded through a combination of reserves, including allocation of new homes bonus, external grant funding and prudential borrowing. In February 23, the MTFS identified an ongoing budget gap across the 4-year period totalling over £2 million, profiled as 1.477 million in 24-25, 0.406 million in 25-26 and 0.151 million in 26-27. As part of the service budget review, unavoidable costs required to maintain current service levels or meet demand-led pressures have been identified and they are set out in Appendix B. The total amount in 24-25 is £195,000, including £40,000 for statutory holiday pay, with a further £98,000 in 25-26. As I mentioned, I won't go through the level of detail as was discussed on Wednesday night at the Corporate Scrutiny Committee, because as well as that opportunity for all members, the report before members tonight is very detailed and covers anything I may or I feel I may need to say. I would, however, just like to mention a few things which provided some discussion at the Corporate Scrutiny Committee. Firstly, at the time of updating the MTFS, the take-up of customers under the early bird scheme in regards to the garden waste had exceeded the original business case assumption of 10% for the first year. Therefore, a review of the financial model and impact from a revised assumption of 30% has now been reflected, bringing forward the profile of savings expected to be achieved into 24-25 by an additional £131,000 total of 250,000. As the early bird discount only applied to the first year, it's been assumed that take-up in subsequent years will reduce, and break-even position is still projected at year 3, achieving a net saving to the MTFS of 683,000. The Council Community Grant Scheme currently allocates £1,250 per member to be used to support community projects and invest initiatives at a total cost of £61,250. Funding the scheme is taken from the collection fund balance and therefore subject to review. As indicated in the report, there is sufficient funding from the collection fund to continue the scheme for 24-25. The Council supports community-based funding through both the Street Cleansing Partnership and by the funding made available to local organisations and groups through the Community Grant Scheme. It is proposed that a review of this and other community initiatives funding is undertaken to consider the most effective basis for offering future financial support while also enabling a reduction to overall spend given the substantial financial challenge faced by the Council. I was also asked at the Corporate Scrutiny Committee regarding the timescale for the work around agile and flexible working. I did explain that there is much work taking place on this as well as 5 separate work streams in the work. I can confirm as part of this work it is planned for a paper to be brought by the end of this civic year where members will be provided a full update of that work. Also, there was a question regarding biodiversity net gain policies, which I did say that I would liaise with Councillor Spray as Cabinet Member for Planning, and have now done so. I can now confirm that the Council will be managing the cost of the implementation of biodiversity net gain within existing budgets, together with some small new burdens grants to the authority from the Government. We are also making the best use of the new burdens grant through commissioning shared resources with other local planning authorities in Essex, including biodiversity net gain officer posts, shared training and learning, and the biodiversity net gain template that the committee approved. I will leave it there, Chairman, and appreciate that the initial proposals were discussed quite in detail on Wednesday evening, but obviously happy to take any further questions. Just to bring members to the attention, on page 29 of the report, the recommendations is to agree that the General Fund revenue and capital programme items as presented in this report constitute the initial proposals to the 24-25 budget and updated MTFS for the period 24-25 to 27-28 for the purposes of the consultation. I so move, Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bowers. Is there a seconder? Thank you very much. Open for comments and discussion. Anyone wish to make any comments or ask any questions? Councillor Mrs. Bevis.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Could I just take the Cabinet Member, if I may, to page 41 of 128, and I'm looking at specifically 5.7. Revenue support grant will continue and increase by inflation. However, along with the new homes bonus, there is no certainty over other grants previously received, such as the Rural Services Delivery and the Services Grant, and no commitment to provide funding is guaranteed. And then it goes on to say about given previous experience. I just wonder whether he could elaborate on that paragraph a bit more for me. And in doing so, could I just ask, in the last budget, we looked at the new homes bonus and we reallocated some of that towards the cost of living, and I just wondered how that spend was going. And from that paragraph, it seems to me that there is some certainty around the continuation of receiving the new homes bonus. It was just a bit more clarity really on that paragraph. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Yeah.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. I think in regards to the, to take the last point first, in regards to the new homes bonus, and I know we've always, as a council, used that not to prop up our finances, but invested in doing investments for the council to produce the best return for our residents. And I know that's not what all authorities have done, but that's the take we have taken. I think in regards to what we have not had the proposals, the indication from government what is going to be happening with new homes bonus. I think the feeling is it will not change, but as I did mention, I think in my presentation on Wednesday evening, but at the moment we have no confirmed commitment on that. In regards the revenue support grant, in regards the paragraph in the report that you're referring to, I think a lot of this is there's no sort of funding guarantee with a lot of this information that sort of comes down from government. And obviously, we are waiting for the local government finance settlement that is indicated will happen before the December recess. But also, this is all sometimes connected with the ideal that we would have multi-year settlements, multi-year indications in regards to what we're coming, rather than one-off amounts. But I think also did refer to on Wednesday evening about sometimes one-off amounts have been continued for sort of more years than the 1 year. But I think at the moment, I think it was just referenced in the report just to sort of flag up about there can be some impact depending on what we get through from government. I think in regards to the new homes bonus and the reserve, the cost of living reserve, I feel that we do update council quite well on that. I know it's been mentioned in my performance. I think my last performance management report in regards to the money that was given to the food banks in the district. Which obviously is a good thing, but in regards to that, I can look to give members a further update in regards where we're actually at with that, if you would prefer. Not a problem. Thank you, Chairman.
Could I just ask Phil, as the head of finance, just to be absolutely clear, in 5.7, which is the paragraph Councillor Beevers drew attention to, it says the MTFS assumes continuation of the first two items only. Can we be absolutely clear what those two items are? Is it the rural services delivery and the services grant, or it is those two?
Yep, correct.
Right, so we're clear about what's in the MTF assumptions at the moment and what isn't. So it is at the moment we've got the rural service delivery and the services grant. Okay. Any other comments or questions from anyone? No. In which case, are you happy to accept the recommendation moved by Councillor Bowers? Agreed. Thank you very much. We then move on to agenda item 9, which is the Climate Change Strategy Update 2023, and this will be introduced by Councillor Tom Cunningham.
Thank you very much, Chairman. I'm not going to say very much because I'm going to hand over to my colleague and deputy for this area, Councillor Schweer, to introduce the report. All I would say is the Cabinet member, we said we would bring an update before the end of the year. Delighted that we are bringing an update before the end of the year, and thank those in the past and currently who've worked so hard on the climate change agenda, and particularly officers who have brought forward what I hope all colleagues present this evening and watching will find a very, very good report. Through you, Chairman, over to Councillor Schweer. Thank you.
So, just before, you will formally move the recommendations to 2.2?
I'm very happy to formally move those recommendations.
Seconded? Seconded, thank you. Right, now I'll hand over to Councillor Schweer. Councillor Schweer.
Thank you very much, Councillor Cunningham, and thank you, Chair. Yes, this report, as Councillor Cunningham mentioned, is an update on the strategy and the climate action plan together, really. And as you heard, the recommendations have just been made by Councillor Cunningham in 2.1 and 2.2. But I just wanted to go through, you will see from the report the background that was in here, and you'll remember, those of you that were here in the previous administration, in July 19, Braintree District Council declared a climate emergency. And of course, that was to make the council low carbon neutral by 2030 as much as could be under practicable means. So from that grew the council's initial plan, which had 73 actions across 7 key themes, which are listed in 4.1 of the report. But just to summarise, there were 10 actions on biodiversity, there were 26 actions on reducing carbon emissions, 16 on changing behaviour towards climate change, 13 were mitigating the effects of climate change itself, and there were 8 developing on the green economy. And I'd just like to highlight 1 or 2 of these that are actually in the report, because as you can see from the body of the report and the update, it's actually very extensive and gives you lots of detail. For instance, the solar panels across our assets generated 428 kilowatt hours of energy in 22-23, resulting in the council now deriving 6% of the energy for our non-fossil renewable sources. And of course, you'll notice in the report the action of that is to hope to move that towards more renewable, and certainly our contract will reflect that in the future. And 86% of BDC managed lighting is now using LED bulbs, and that's from across all of our properties have installed, and that is continuing to be replaced, the lighting even at the Braintree Swim and Fitness. So there is more work to do, but you can see that they're progressing well. And of course, you've heard from Councillor Cunningham earlier in the agenda as well about the HUG grants as well. So that is all in part and parcel. And of course, I think worthy of note is also that we have planted an additional 4,500 trees, 18,700 whips and over 73,000 bulbs as well. And so I don't really want to go through all of the detail in this report, but there is an awful lot of really good information which shows and gives the detail of the action that is in there. And what is important that is in that plan, there's two parts to this, is in part of Appendix A of the report, of the action report for 22-23, it includes extensive progress marked against indicators, and it gives all the detail to the end of the year on all of those actions that we are taking. And I think it's very good because it's very easy, it's visual and easy to track, and that is one of the benefits that we have had, because one of the additions that we have made in improvements in 22-23 was the new position of a climate change project manager, which is a full-time member of staff, and which has allowed us to track those and make those adjustments. So that's really indicative of action as a result of the increase of that head of staff. And of course, the other thing that we have done, and I think has been well noticed by everybody, is the amount of communications and comms that we have done, not only internally to members, but also externally through not only traditional sort of press and everything else, but very much so on the digital media as well. So all of those actions, as I say, are included into the action of the report, and they are also reported, as you can point towards the future of the climate action plan for 23-24 as well. And in section 5, it suggests that the document is kept live, which is a document that we will then update annually, as we said, which is what we brought to Cabinet tonight. And this reduces the risk of not only achieving the required reduction of organisational carbon emissions, but it keeps it really active as well. And then in section 6, you will see the statement of the finance and what was agreed, and the increase in the initial budget asks, and during 22-23 the budgets were 48,000 for the carbon management from the reserve, 46,000 from the green into the Green Heart Reserve balance, and 22,000 was allocated for flooding relief. So this also is crossing the portfolios as well. So it's a really comprehensive report, and at the end there I think you will see some of the very useful graphic information of all the opportunities that the Council has taken to the communications externally to show what this Council has done in addressing climate change and the report and those actions, and the fact that they're well documented as well. So overall, I welcome this report, and I'd like to hand back to Councillor Cunningham, as he's already moved the actions for 2 and 2.1.
Thank you, Councillor Swain. Through you, Chairman, nothing else to add. Once again, just to praise all those involved in delivering the strategy and action plan and the report that came to Cabinet this evening. Thank you.
Good. Open it up for comments. Councillor Spray.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, I welcome this excellent report. Would just like to say that planning is certainly playing its part in responding to climate change and in supporting this. A number of supplementary planning documents are being produced. They sit alongside our current adopted local plan, and they are intended to provide guidance and support to developers in the production of their plans. So, for example, the Biodiversity Net Gain SPD was discussed and approved at last week's local plan subcommittee. That includes the mandatory 10% biodiversity net gain at the moment, but we are hoping and intending really that will be increased to 20% when our local plan is next reviewed and comes forward. It has to be a policy change, so that will happen with the next review. We are increasingly seeing things like EV charging points as standard on new developments. Tree-lined streets are now the norm on applications, and actually officers and the planning committee look for nothing less than that, especially when the larger developments come forward. We are also, as an authority, encouraging community groups working on neighbourhood plans to consider including policies on managing the impact of climate change when they're pulling together their neighbourhood plans, so things like energy efficiency and green spaces and so on. So I certainly think that this authority, certainly from the planning department and planning committee, we are doing our bit to support this. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Any other comments? Councillor Mrs. Bevis.
Thank you, Chairman. I mean, there's no doubt about it that this strategy is moving forward and that there are some excellent notable wins. You know, there's no doubt about it. You know, we've done the right thing, and you know, it's all there. In fact, there's too much, I think, really to kind of pick on every point that one may have, but there are just a couple of areas, and I have raised some of this before, but I am going to say this again, just to underline the points, and no particular order really, and I'm not going to pinpoint the part on the actual strategy, but there was a piece in here about parish council streetlights, and I know that quite a lot of our parishes have been turning off their streetlights. So, for example, Gosfield, a couple of years ago, every other streetlight in the village was turned off, and I think it brought them in a saving of about 8,000 a year on year, which for a parish council is quite big. And you know, clearly for all these reasons, it was a good thing to do. And Castle Hedingham have just switched off their last street, so we're totally black at night now. But when one drives across the district in the evening, particularly when I'm kind of around Braintree, and I don't know all the ownership of all the lights, but it just seems to me that there are so many lights on. You know, if you go from Gosfield through to Braintree, you could kind of count and think, actually, you could turn 4 off here, 3 off there, 2 off there. And I just wonder why we're so heavily lit. I just have a real thing about it. It really irritates me that there is this number of lights still burning. So that's the first thing. On the travel plans, and I have mentioned this before, I think in the report it mentions that there are 4 businesses in Braintree signed up to travel plans. As far as I'm aware, we are the micro business growth of the whole of Essex, and I just feel that so much more could be done for businesses to engage in this. And I'll just give you one example. Yesterday, I said to my husband, here we go again, I'm going to pop down to Freeport because it's Christmas. It took me an hour and a half yesterday. My husband always cooks me dinner on a Sunday, and I said, put it back 2 hours if you wouldn't mind. It's just ridiculous, and it came forward. And I'm not being political. Yeah, I'm really not. As a local resident, and I was a young girl when I saw the bypass. My father used to take me out there and say, this is what's coming. And we drove these roads and we saw all the growth. And here we are, still now, thinking, you know, should I just start going to Sudbury in future? Because, and I love Freeport, absolutely love Freeport. It's so irritating. And it came out in our corporate strategy about congestion. And finally, I would just say, it also came out on the corporate strategy and in the Live Well strategy, and quite near the top of priorities, about people love our public open spaces, but there definitely is a void of getting our people to these spaces. And this time of year, you might as well rule Great Notley Park out for the residents in the north because of congestion on the roads. I'll leave it there. It's not really to be answered fully, it's just how I feel. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Mr. Speakers. Before I ask comments on, can I just make one point? First of all, I think we should call it Braintree Village. Freeport is its old name. and it is now Braintree Village. But I do agree entirely with what you say about the traffic congestion there. I would only implore you to talk to your deputy leader of your group to get the same enthusiasm for helping us to cure that area by extending the A120. I don't think we can have one leader of a group saying one thing and the deputy leader of a group saying the complete opposite. You cannot be all things to all people. And I think that, with due respect, is something that your group does need to sort out. But so I'm entirely with you on that. Can I just, on your other points that you've raised, I'm going to ask either Councillor Cunningham or Councillor Swear to come back on that. I think what I would say is I think it's been huge support from parish and town councils and the communities around, particularly around tree planting. You listening to some members of this council, you would think we did nothing in Braintree but take trees down. And as the report says quite clearly, 18,700 trees have been planted. And maybe you could have a word with your deputy leader just to sort of get some sort of balance, because you might think that the whole argument was one tree in Witham when we're talking about 18,700 new trees being planted. And I'd like to just pay tribute to the parishes and the community that joined in that, because I think even if in some cases very small parishes just took a couple of trees, and it does make a world of difference. Yet do by all means come back.
Thank you, Chairman. I appreciate those comments. I just realised there was one other part that I didn't raise, and again it is in the report, and again it's come out in the corporate plan of the council. I think it says about increased use of our public transport, but in fact myself and Councillor Taylor over the weekend responded to quite a long social media post, and it was really helpful to read the comments actually from local residents about the lack of community transport in the rural areas. And I go back to my previous comment. I mean, I'm pretty much born and bred in the district, and I love the district. I travel all over the place, and I really do love it. But there are times when residents want to go off to Sudbury, to Haverhill. They could get to Haverhill, they could get to Cambridge, and there are just not those linkages. And we keep lobbying for this, and we will continue to do so. And again, I just wanted to to highlight that, because I feel I should be talking about the issues of public transport in the rural areas. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much. Anyone want that? Councillor Mrs. Barris-Flynn.
Thank you, Chairman. The topic of turning streetlights off in villages or in towns is very contentious, and I understand the reasons for green campaigns, if you like, that they turned off. However, there is another side to that, and that's people's safety and their perception of the safety. We work along with females especially, who will turn around and actually say they don't feel safe walking about at night now in this district because of the lighting situation. So we have to take into consideration people's safety and perception of turning lights off, I think. On the congestion at Braintree Village, try living there. Try living there. For several years now, getting out at weekends is just impossible without a 2-hour window of going where you should only take 10 minutes. But basically, the traffic is queued up from our village to go anywhere, to get anywhere. And it's extremely frustrating when the ward member doesn't support the extension and the upgrade of the A120. It's difficult. People do find that hard to understand when every weekend is a no-go area. And it's not just now at weekends, it's spreading into the week as well. The congestion is horrendous, Jim. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other comments or questions at all? Councillor Jeffries and Councillor Bowers.
Councillor Spray answered really a lot of what I was going to ask was really what the highlights are for next year, because it's a really good report and we've done a lot, and I just wondered if there were any highlights coming up.
Okay, can we pick that up when we've had any more questions? Then, Councillor Bowers.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. Yeah, I just wanted to commend Councillor Cunningham, Councillor Schweer, and also thank Josie Falco on a brilliant report, a brilliant update. And as Councillor Cunningham said, this is what was always promised, and I'm pleased to see it with us tonight. There is so much detail in there. Obviously, it's difficult to cover everything, but it's really good to now have that in one place that we can refer to. I think from my point of view, talking from a financial point of view, and I know it's been referenced in the budget proposals about providing another £200,000 to top up the climate change reserve that we have spent quite a bit of money on climate change, and just the details which I was looking in report kind of thing in regards, like £624,000 of funds have been made available, £151,000 been spent, and 423 already committed or allocated to specific actions. It shows what this authority is doing and how serious we are taking the climate change agenda, and that is more so detailed in tonight's report. I do have one quick question, and I don't know whether Councillor Schweer will know the answer, and it's probably me that I don't actually understand the detail in regards to this. But on page 67, when it's the percentage of district with access to superfast broadband, it references that Braintree District is currently at 97% of premises able to access superfast broadband. County-wide service take-up is 76%, and it says district is currently at 30%. What does that? Do we know what that 30% refers to? It's just I'm getting confused in regards. We say 97% are able to. What that 30? Do we know what that 30% refers to? It's probably me, but if Councillor Schweer could have a look at that, thank you.
Yeah, do come in. Yes.
Thank you for your question. My understanding of that is that 97% of the premises have got access to that superfast speed, and the services are taking up. But I think that currently the population is only taking up 30% of that fibre allocation as such. So only there's so many people across the districts are subscribing, and I'm looking to Josie Falke to confirm that that is correct, and she's nodding. So.
So it's the element of the superfast. So it's there, it's available, but only 30% of residents have actually accessed the superfast broadband.
That's low.
Sorry, that answers your question. Fine. Yes, by all means, Councillor.
Yeah, I just, if I may, just go back on the previous points raised. If Councillor Cullen is okay with that.
I think Councillor Ritchie then has another point out.
Okay.
So let's take up the points.
I'll take up the points from Councillor Beavis with regards to sort of the lighting. I think the opinion. The point here is in agreement with LED and the brightness, but of course that is a function of Essex County Council highways over and above those street lights that are in control of the town and parish councils, and of course that decision would be made by the town and parish councils, but actually the majority of the street lights across the district would be a responsibility of Essex County Council, with not only the LED fittings but their timings as well. So I recommend, if you are concerned, to contact not only your local county councillor but also Essex County Council with regard to that. And of course, you mentioned about our open spaces. Well, I'd just like to remind Councillor Beavis that actually our open spaces, we've just recently won over 40 awards, and I think 21 of them were gold and 19 were silver. So I think Braintree District Council has got a very proud history of not only our open spaces, but the fact that we win awards in them, but also that we are gradually turning them over towards more sustainable means as well, as evidenced by some of the awards that have mentioned that and the changes that are being made. That is of course ongoing, but I think overall it's the open spaces are really important, and that is also reflected in the planning, as you are well aware of being part of the member of the planning committee. And of course The increased use of public transport, and you're quite right to mention that, about the importance of that in rural areas, and it is a demand and a need of a lot of people who live in the residential areas. But again, I would suggest that look at the success of Digigo. Although Digigo is only rolling out on its 2 zones, which is Great Notley and Saffron Walden, the usage of that has been exponential, and my understanding is that Essex County Council have never seen growth like they have done on Digigo. And of course that is at the moment due to partly to funding from the Department for Transport, who wish to collect the data, and of course the advantage of that operating in the zone, there are no connection problems in picking up for people, so it basically picks up people from their point of origin and takes them to where they want to go. And the stats, I think, are very important and speak for themselves. So I agree, and of course you would have had an opportunity recently to comment on public transport through the consultation that was on public transport through Essex County Council. And I think that was about it. I think those are all the questions answered.
There is a question from Councillor Jeffries, which was, well, this is very good for this year. What are the problems for next year? I don't want to lose sight of that, because I think it's a very important question.
Yes, and Councillor Jeffries, I refer you back into the report, because effectively, as mentioned, a lot of that action is ongoing, and that will continue, and that is the whole point of having a new member of staff who will ensure and look at the delivery of all those continuous actions, because some of them are medium and long-term actions that will benefit residents and businesses across the district.
Okay, now I've got Councillor Ritchie, I've Councillor Spray, but I think you wanted to come back, Councillor Mrs. Beavis?
Thank you, Chairman, and thank you for your indulgence. It was helpful, thank you, Councillor Swear, some of what you said, but actually not all of it, and maybe you also need to go back and do a little bit of reading and catching up yourself, if I may, because we have just gone through the consultation of our corporate strategy and also the Live Well strategy. And we know 2 things. First of all, we know from the corporate strategy that the number of those in the rural areas that responded was extremely low. You would know that because you would have read the papers. And there's something we need to do about improving that. And secondly, on the point I make about the access to our public open spaces, I'm not trying to make a political point. I'm giving the facts. And actually at a meeting of Live Well that we had only last week, we're being told that actually the officers have understood that there is a void in accessibility to public open spaces. I'm not saying they're not great. I've lived here all my life. I've seen the growth. They're amazing. But I'm saying, and it's proven, that the accessibility is a real problem. And through the Live Well strategy, they're going to try and hopefully resolve it. So I just wanted to make that point. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much. Did you want to come back?
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, just on Live Well, then I would suggest that you make that you recommend those comments back into a Live Well strategy, because this report is obviously about the climate, and with regards to accessibility, I mean, I will take that away and speak, to officers about that as well, and bear that in mind in future. Thank you.
Okay, now I've got Councillor Ritchie.
Thank you, Chairman. Just a point I wanted to make, if that's okay, in as much as the strategy is fast-stretching, and in as much as it even takes into account the economy, and in fact the green economy is something that's really, really important, and something which the North Essex Economic Board, which this council is a proud participant of, has very much at its core values. In fact, it was part of its action plan that we discussed last week around how can we promote North Essex green potential, and how we can in fact convene green businesses. So in as much as we can't make businesses do green things, and we can't even really tell them to do green things, we can encourage them and give them signposting as to how they can maintain themselves as a green and keep the climate change as front and focus for their businesses too. So it's great that it's part of that strategy. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Mrs. Spray.
Thank you, Chairman. Just in answer to Councillor Jeffrey's point, and to add to what Councillor Schwer said, in planning terms, there is plenty going on. I said we approved last week the supplementary planning document on biodiversity net gain. That we had to do first because it's a government requirement, and that comes into force in January, which is not very far off. But there are others to follow on climate change, for example, and including something on alternative energy sources, so solar farms, wind farms. We are aware that we are getting more and more planning applications for solar farms coming forward. So there will be plenty more to come next year. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Cunningham.
Thank you, Chairman. If no one else is going to come in, I wouldn't just mind just adding a couple of words conclusion, and once again thanking all those involved. And I think we've been able to demonstrate this evening, Chairman, the passion, the enthusiasm, the commitment for this agenda in the organisation, both politically and at officer level, and that goes right from the top of the organisation down. And obviously reflecting on what we have done, yes, I think there is a lot of credit to be taken, but of course, as always, the ambition is what do you do in the future? And the actions for this year, as alluded to by Councillor Shuer, have been added from page 92 onwards, and the actions for 24-25 are being designed. And we collectively welcome the provision there in the emerging budget. Obviously appreciate still some way to go on finalising the actual budget, but the emerging budget for the extra commitment of 200,000 to top up the climate change reserve. But going forward, whilst once again reaffirming our commitment and our passion for this agenda, I would say we must approach this realistically, and any goals that we set must be achievable. Braintree District Council on its own isn't going to sort out the climate change crisis facing the country and indeed the world. But what we can do is make sure we continue to make those meaningful interventions that add considerable value to this wider agenda. And I think with the expertise we have, both politically and organisationally, in terms of officers, we're well poised to ensure any investment we make is spent wisely, working with partners, looking at opportunities to lever in additional funding and deliver better outcomes on that. And I think that'll be the challenge in 24-25 and as part of the first year of the new corporate strategy. And it's a challenge we're all really looking forward to. I would just like to say I'm grateful again for Councillor Ritchie and pointing out the work that we did on green economy. It does remain a cause of great pride to this administration that in the last council, it was Braintree District Council that brought forward the iConstruct project that enabled that to take place, supporting innovation in construction, modern methods, green construction. That was a project well beyond the scope of a district council, and it does leave a legacy, and it's a cause of great collective pride that it was Braintree District Council that helped to enable that. Thank you, Chairman. But a very good debate this evening. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions? I'm pretty sure that there's one person watching this tonight, and that's former Councillor Mrs. Schmidt, who I spoke to only a few days ago. I hope that watching this, and I know she still follows our proceedings, she will feel that what she put in train, and we will always remember that she really was the champion in this cabinet to do that and put that forward. But I have to say, I think what we have achieved so far with the resources that we made available are absolutely first class, and my congratulations to everyone who's been involved, and the fact that by and large I think we have cross-party support for this programme. There's still a lot to do, and as Councillor Cunningham points out, in difficult financial times it's an easy thing not to put resources to this. But I think we've got the right balance between making use of those resources that we can and also making progress in this whole area. Key to it, though, is taking the public with us. Because if we don't, then quite frankly, we will be wasting our time. And that's that difficult issue, which I fully get the point about whether the lights are on or off, and those of us who've been around some time will remember the huge debates that were on. And indeed, I think some of our district councils now pay the county council to keep the lights on, because that's the view. So it is about getting the balance right. But I think we can be proud of the start that has been made on this, and also what's planned for the future, and look forward for the continuing support of that policy across the Chamber. If there are no other questions, are you happy to accept the recommendations as moved by Councillor Tom Cunningham? Agreed. Thank you very much indeed. That, I think, brings us to the end of the agenda. There are no private items, so in that case, I will declare this meeting closed at 8:15. Thank you very much indeed.